Welcome to an entertaining and enlightening webinar with Dan Fitzpatrick, AI in Education. Dan is an AI optimist and a leading voice in AI education and innovation. He's a best-selling author, and you might have seen him speaking at a range of events in Europe, or heard his thoughts on AI on BBC Radio 4 or in Times Magazine. Not only has Dan won the Tech Champion Award at the Digital Industry Dynamite Award, but as a former director for digital strategy at a large college group, he has helped over 42,000 educators embrace AI. Join us as Dan shares his insights and experience in utilizing AI for education and beyond, followed by a Q&A session where he will be answering your burning question about AI in education. So if you have any questions, please enter them in the chat. Dan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And it's amazing to be with you all. So I know a lot of you are around Europe and lots of different countries and maybe even further afield. I am in England. I'm in the northeast of England in a place called Newcastle upon Tyne. That's where I'm from, and that's where I live when I'm not traveling around helping schools and school districts and universities with artificial intelligence. So I'm really excited to be able to talk to you today, and we're going to get into kind of the whole area of what is this technology, where is it going, and then how can we practically start using it as educators today. So I don't need to do that now because that was an amazing introduction. Thank you very much. So I'll skip past that bit. I'm really privileged. I do get to travel a lot around the world, a lot to the United States and the Middle East and around the UK and Europe, kind of with two main purposes really: to raise awareness of artificial intelligence, because I'm a big believer that if we use it right and in a safe way, that it can bring enormous benefits to what we're already doing within education, but also help us to facilitate the future of education as well. So yeah, so I do a lot of workshops, a lot of kind of things that you're going to see me do over the next hour, but also a lot of strategic sessions with leadership groups, with innovation groups around the world, and coming up with strategy policies and practical ways to move into the next few years in a purposeful way. And a lot of what I'm going to say today you will find in the AI Classroom, the Ultimate Guide to Artificial Intelligence in Education, which was released last year, and is it kind of tries to cover a lot of what we do in education. So from an educator point of view, from a leadership point of view, from a student point of view as well. And it's quite a big book. It's about 400 pages and goes into a lot of the kind of the thinking of where I think this will go and the skills that we're going to need to have, but then also very much the practical side, so tools and frameworks to use, some of which I'll share with you in this webinar. I always start whenever I do a presentation with this quote, and it's by Peter Diamandis. It's about 4 years old now, and he said, "We'll experience more technological progress in the coming decade than we did in the preceding 100 years put together." Now, that's a bold quote. That's a really bold quote. And I've been using this for a while, even kind of since before the kind of this new wave of artificial intelligence. And I kind of always used it as a nice way to start a presentation like this to catch people's attention. There's going to be change with technology, but I think I always thought there was some hyperbole in this. There was an exaggeration, and in fact, it was used as a headline by McKinsey and Company, and you might have had this realization alongside me as well. The first time I ever used ChatGPT, now at the end of November 2022, a company called OpenAI releases this to the world. Now, I am sure that from everybody on this call that there will be people who are using this regularly, people who might have just dipped their toes in and tried it once or twice, and then some people who have never used it, and in fact some people might never even heard of it. But this kind of brought about this kind of new wave in technological tools about a year and a half ago. And when I first started to use it, this quote came alive for me, and I suddenly realized that we could get that level of advancement in such a short period of time with this new technology, and indeed a lot of other technologies that are being worked on at the moment. I do think we look back on 2023, 2024 to this year as kind of the start, the entry to a new era of humanity, really, of society, because of how much this technology is going to progress, how much it will be integrated into what we do, and the power that this technology will also have. Don't just take my word for it, though. I'm going to show you a video now, and in this video is the Hollywood actor Morgan Freeman talking about this new era.
What is your perception of reality? Is it the ability to capture, process, and make sense of the information our senses receive? If you can see, hear, taste, or smell something, does that make it real? Or is it simply the ability to feel? I would like to welcome you to the era of synthetic reality. Now, what do you see?
So Morgan Freeman there says, I'd like to welcome you to the era of synthetic reality. Now, what do you see? Now, what do you think he means by that? You might have already guessed this already. But what do you think he means by now, what do you see? I'm going to pass straight back to Morgan Freeman, and he's going to tell you.
I am not Morgan Freeman, and what you see is not real. Well, at least in contemporary terms, it is not. What if I were to tell you that I am not even a human being? Would you believe me?
Yeah, some of you will have guessed that, I'm sure. It's about a year old now, that video, but that's not Morgan Freeman. In fact, the image that was Morgan Freeman there, the voice, the animation, all created with artificial intelligence. And in fact, the flickering that you saw there at the end was the actual person who was talking. Now, what does this mean? This technology? Are we educating our students about this? I mean, this tends to be called deep fake, and we've had um, decent deep fake technology for the last year or so. It's going to get to a point, and kind of is getting to that point now, where the blur, the boundary between what's real and what's not real, and being able to determine what's real and not real is really getting difficult, to the point where we're not going to be able to tell the difference. Now, we've had to deal with misinformation on the internet a lot over the last couple of decades, but this has taken it to a whole new level. And what is it? 2 billion people on this planet are going to be voting in an election this year. And political commentators are saying that democracies are hanging by a thread because of some of the people that are voting in these elections, or the way that the elections are being run. You better believe this is being used. In fact, it has been used. How are we preparing our students? Are we preparing ourselves for what's coming in terms of this type of technology and what it will be capable of? Now, let's go back to the start, because I'm sure there will be people on the call who are still kind of like, ChatGPT, don't really know what it is, or only tried it once or twice. So let's just delve in really quickly into what is this. So this is an example of generative artificial intelligence. We've had good AI with us for a while. Now, if you've got one of these, a smartphone in your pocket, you've had good artificial intelligence with you for about 10 years now. And I'm going to paint in very broad strokes here. That type of AI is the AI that learns about data and gives insights into data. Really powerful. So why is this different? Why, if you read a newspaper, if you watch the news, is this technology pretty much mentioned on a daily basis and has been for the last year and a half? Well, this is generative AI, which means it doesn't just give insights into data, it generates or creates new data. And that means it can create new resources, new content, new media. And that's where things start to get really interesting for us who work in education, because these are kind of the raw materials that we deal with on a daily basis, what we create. So this has a big impact on us, and can bring a lot of benefits to what we do if used in the correct way. Now, for those who aren't used to a tool like this, let me just jump over to ChatGPT. So you should be able to see this on your screen now. So if you've never used it, it looks a bit like a WhatsApp conversation, looks like a Facebook Messenger conversation, except when I say hello to it, the response I'm getting is not from a human being. It's from one of the most advanced technologies ever made, one of the most advanced AIs. And so I can say to it, tell me about this. This webinar is obviously being organized and presented by It's Learning. So let's say if I can say, tell me about the It's Learning platform. So it's taking a bit longer to respond to you. This normally means it's searching the internet. And here we go. And from my knowledge of It's Learning, it looks like it's correct there. It's an LMS, originally developed in Norway, used around the world, and it's given some features of It's Learning there. And there we go. So yeah, quite a comprehensive answer, presented in a nice way. Now, shall we get it to be a bit creative? So I'm now going to type in, write a poem about It's Learning. So I'm asking it to be a bit creative now. And look how fast it's writing this. Now, this is because in its training data, it's learned what a poem is, how a kind of a general poem is structured, that a lot of poems rhyme, and so it's taken those things it's learned and applying it to this to create the poem. Now, it's not going to be the most amazing poem you've ever read, and to be fair, my request, write a poem about It's Learning, is very broad. It's very general, and one of the things I want to do with you in the second half of this hour is get into how can we be more specific with our prompts. There we go. So I'm going to now, let's get it to be even more creative. So I'm going to say to it, imagine a webinar by It's Learning about AI in education. There are, let's say, participants from around Europe. Now create an, let's say, an abstract image of this. Okay, so let's see what it can do here. And I've got ChatGPT version 4, which means it can create images. It has that additional functionality. So it's now going to create an abstract image of what I've just explained. I've got no idea what it's going to come out with here. This will be the first time anyone's ever set eyes on this image because it is literally creating it, it's generating it right now. So this will be a unique image that nobody has ever set eyes upon. So let's see what it looks like. Here it comes. Okay, there we go. I'll just click on it so it becomes a bit bigger. And you can see it's incorporated Europe in there. It's incorporated the different people, kind of the digital connections there. Yeah, it's all right. I mean, it's not amazing, but it's all right. And again, my request was fairly basic. It was fairly generic. So judging by the type of request I give it, it's okay. It's a good image. And there are other image tools that are a lot better than ChatGPT. But you get a general sense of what it can do for you, and you can just ask it to create something for you, and it will create that thing for you. And yeah, I mean, I'm going to go back to the presentation now, and I want to delve further into this. Why can it? How can it do this? How can it present those results in just a few seconds? Well, it's what's called a natural language processor, which essentially means that it can communicate with us using our natural language, and we can communicate with it, and it understands what we're asking for in human language. Now, if you think about it, that's quite revolutionary. For decades and decades and decades, we've always had to speak the computer's language to get it to work for us. Now it speaks our language, and so therefore can simulate human communication. How can it do this? There's a number of factors. There's a number of advancements in the technology that have occurred over the last few years. One of them is the amount of data that we're able to train these AIs on. If you think about it, past 25, 30 years, we've been building the biggest repository of human knowledge, human wisdom, knowledge that's not so wise as well, called the internet. And so huge, vast data sets are available to train these AIs on. If you've got the free version of ChatGPT, which is completely free, you can go to ChatGPT right now, create an account in about a minute. And if you haven't got a free account with ChatGPT, I recommend that you do, so that you can have a play around with this and try things out as we're going. I think you'll probably get the most out of this if you've got a tool like ChatGPT open, or if you're using other tools like Google Gemini or Anthropic's Claude, which is another version of it's a similar tool to this, then you can play along as we go, and try things out. But don't worry if not, you can always do that afterwards and go back as well. Don't forget as well, if you've got questions in the webinar, please do jump into the chat and ask your questions. No question is too stupid. No question is too silly. Just get them in there. We're all at different stages on this. Most of us are beginners. I sometimes get referred to as an expert because I've written a book about this and I work in this area, but I truly don't think anyone is a true expert in this, apart from maybe a few people in the world. We're all learning together. Some of us might just be a few months ahead of others. That's all that's going on here. This is new to most of the world. So please do ask any questions you have, and we'll spend the last 10 minutes of this hour having a look at those questions, and I'll try to answer them. Okay, so what kind of data is it trained on? Like I said, it's data from the internet, but I suppose the crucial point here is it's the amount of data. So the free version of ChatGPT trained on 300 billion words worth of information. That's a lot of information. And in fact, those numbers go over our heads. So if you think about it like this, when you read a book, you tend to read about 100 words every 30 seconds if you're going at a good pace. If you continue to read at that pace and just don't stop, don't have a break, just keep going, it would take you approximately 2,854 years to read the amount of words worth of information that the free version of ChatGPT has been trained on. If you get the upgrade to ChatGPT 4, you get access to a more advanced AI model, which is a lot more reasoned, can write better than the free version, and similar analogy in terms of how much time it would take to read the amount of information it's been trained on. ChatGPT 4, it would take you about 7,000 years. That's a lot of information that these tools have been trained on. Now, as we just saw with ChatGPT, it's essentially a text-to-text tool. You put text in the form of a request, a question, a prompt, as it's sometimes known as, and you get text back. Now, it does have some advanced features where it can create an image, and there are tools that are called text-to-image tools. You put text in, and you will get an image back. And there are some really advanced image tools out there. There's one called Midjourney. If you're looking for probably one of the most advanced tools, you pay for it. It's not too much. I think it's about $8 per month. But that's probably one of the most advanced AI models, and it can create images like this. Does anybody recognize this image? Now, some newspapers around the world last year published this image thinking it was a real image as a funny picture. The Pope spotted it wearing a big white coat in Rome, turned out completely generated by artificial intelligence. And this was the tool Midjourney was used for this, and it can create photorealistic looking images, all completely unique here. Another example of some images that were released last year, some of you might have seen these. By the way, if you're ever asked to give a keynote talk in Florida on AI, don't use this slide. I learned the hard way. If anyone's from Florida on this call, you will understand why. It's a very Republican state. But yeah, this is, I mean, and I put it on here. I mean, not as a to make any political points, but to show you what people can create very easily in a matter of seconds, and the impact it has, and the impact they could have on people's opinions, even political situations. So I really do think, going back to the Morgan Freeman video at the start, that we need to be educating our students on the use of these tools and preparing them for this world as well. There is text to audio tools now. The next two I'm going to show you, the text to audio and text to video tools, have gone through major advancements, and even in just the last week or two. So text to audio, there is a tool out there, and I'll put it on my screen now so you can see it. There's a tool out there called Udio. This was released last week, and you can essentially type in, and I'll log in here, you can type in any song that you want to be created and it will create it. Okay. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to go back to when I got the ChatGPT to write the poem for us. So let's have a look. So I'm going to just copy and paste that first part of the poem. I'm going to go back to Udio, and you can put in your own lyrics. So I'm going to paste them in there. You can get it to create its own lyrics as well. I'm going to just put at the top, it's learning webinar on AI in education. Then you get to choose the style. Let's try hip hop. So hip hop, yeah, should we just leave it at that? I'll click create. And what it's going to do is it's going to create 2 tracks based on the lyrics. Now, the lyrics were created with artificial intelligence. The music that you will hear has been created with artificial intelligence in terms of the voice, in terms of the instruments and the music. Now, this can take a little bit of time. You can see there it's telling me it's going to take less than 1 minute. So what we'll do is we'll come back to that in a couple of minutes, and hopefully it will be ready for us. So going back to the presentation, let's just move on to text to video for now. So there are tools out there where you can type in what type of video you want created and it will create it. Now, a lot of them out there at the minute are okay. They're not amazing. Except ChatGPT, or the OpenAI, the company who created ChatGPT, announced recently that they're about to launch a tool called Sora, S-O-R-A, and it will be the world's most powerful video AI generator. And they've started to release examples of what this thing can do. So let me just show you some of those examples, just a couple of them really quickly. Now, they typed into it point of view footage of an ant navigating the inside of an ant nest. And this is the video it created. I think I'm having some internet issues here. Let me see if I can just really quickly find it on YouTube. So yeah, I'm just getting the circle of doom there with it loading. I found it on YouTube. I'll just switch to this tab. There we go. So this is what it created, this video here. You can see the ant walking through. This is all created with AI. None of this is real in the slightest. A bit like the images, none of that is real in the slightest. They also created one with the prompt. So if I go back to here, they typed this prompt into it: photorealistic close-up video of 2 pirate ships battling each other as they sail inside of a coffee cup. And this is what it created. In fact, this technology, when it was released, there was a Hollywood producer called Tyler Perry in the United States who was just about to launch a production company in Hollywood, and he was investing $800 million into it. And when he noticed these videos online, he pulled the plug. He stopped all of his investment because he said, well, if this is what we can do with AI now, then putting $800 million into a production company probably isn't the wisest choice at the moment. So this is changing a lot of how we consume content, which I think has a direct impact on how we view the world and how we learn as well, which then ends up in our realm, in what we do in our professionalism. Let me go back, see if those songs are ready, and they are right now. I'm just going to share this tab so you can see. So it's created 2 songs here. I've got no idea what these are going to sound like, but let's just press play and have a listen.
It's learning webinar on AI in education. In virtual halls where knowledge blooms, it's learning crafts the brightest rooms. A digital domain, both vast and wide, where teachers...
Okay, that's the first one. It was okay. Now let's see if the second one's any better.
It's learning webinar on AI in education. In virtual halls where knowledge blooms, it's learning crafts the brightest room.
Okay, I mean they're not too bad, are they? They're not the best ones I've heard it create. I mean, again, you can get more detailed with the prompt, with the request to get it to be better. But for a quick try, it took those lyrics that were created by AI. AI created voice, AI created music in the background, back-end vocals, and all of that. And then less than a minute, it said it took there. What it can create for us is phenomenal. Now, it led me to write this in my book. I said, in the AI era, we will create simply using words. Now, I put that out as a provocation to provoke. I don't think that all things will be created with words using AI into the future. Of course not. But we're going to be able to do a lot just using words, just prompting AI, collaborating with AI. And I think that's the key here, the collaboration element. A lot of evidence suggests that it's actually human and AI collaborating together that gets the best results out of these tools. And that has a direct implication on the skills that we can learn in order to help us get better at content creation and other such things, but also the skills our students are going to need when they leave us, or maybe even when they're still with us, to help them study using artificial intelligence. So we've got a lot of rethinking to do, I think, about what skills our students are going to need. And if you take this literally, this quote, it wouldn't take a genius to pull out that actually literacy, communication are going to be really vital tools, really vital skills to be able to communicate and write and speak instructions in a clear way that's understandable, to be able to collaborate, to be able to evaluate what's coming out. There's a lot of skills that aren't necessarily about AI, but that we can help integrate into our curriculums more, that will help with AI. And I think there's a lot of schools at the moment, a lot of universities around the world who are contemplating this and bringing in new schemes of work, bringing in new curriculums to deal with this. So why AI? For me, it comes down to 3 things: preparing students for success, like I've just mentioned, giving our teachers the best tools possible to use. I'm going to come on to that. And staying relevant as educational providers. I'm not going to spend any time on number 3. In fact, I'm writing a book about it at the moment. But just to say, there are lots of educational options popping up now around the world. Online schooling, AI tutoring, and so on. And I think we're going to get a lot more of these options. I think the landscape of choice for parents, for students in the next few years is going to grow. And so that begs the question, for me at least, how do we, as maybe traditional schools, traditional parts of the educational system, stay relevant in that landscape. Just something to think about as we go on. Okay, I sometimes think it's really difficult, isn't it, for us as educators to try and do anything about technology? Because I mean, let's take social media for example. Big tech companies create social media apps and platforms. Our students use them, we use them, and there's not much we can do about it. And therefore, we have to take the good with the extremely ugly with these tools. Is there anything we can do about AI? I think there is, and I think probably the thing we can do is probably the most important thing we can do at the moment. And during the COVID pandemic, and in that first year, I was working in a school in charge of digital transformation, and one of the things we noticed, and I'm sure you did as well in your school, is the digital divide between students who had access to technology and the skills to use it well, and those who didn't. And I really think AI is going to exacerbate that. I think AI is going to turn that gap into a gulf if we're not careful. Because students who have access to good technology and have the skills to use it well, for example, collaborating with AI, are going to be able to go so much further now with what they're able to do. And students who don't have those skills or don't have that access are going to stay where they are. So I think we've got some focus to do right now and what we do next. And I think it comes down to this: how do we teach our students collaboration skills so they can collaborate with AI, they can use it in a beneficial way? Because we're already starting to see job descriptions coming out now that require some experience or some knowledge of using a tool like ChatGPT. Now, bear in mind, that's not technical skills. There's nothing technical about that, really. It's just, can you, alongside your job, use a tool like ChatGPT to help you, to augment what you do, to be productive, to help you be more creative, to help you come up with better ideas. So, and it kind of makes sense when you think about it like that. An employee is probably going to want someone who can use this fairly well, and it doesn't take that long to be able to learn how to use it well. So how are we preparing our students for this world now that we live in? And I think that's really vital. It's also vital for us to know how to use these tools. Now, I'm just showing you this as a bit of evidence, which I think it's not about education. So take this with a pinch of salt. But I find with my work around the world with different schools and universities that this very much backs up the anecdotal evidence that we're seeing. So MIT and Harvard in the United States worked with Boston Consultancy Group. They worked with 700 consultants who were using AI in their day-to-day workflows, 700 who weren't, and they found that the consultants who used AI finished 12% more tasks on average, completed tasks 25% more quickly, and produced 40% higher quality results. Now, I worry there about the gulf or the gap between us as educators, those who are using this and those who aren't, because as the technology gets better, and it is pretty much on a daily basis, and there's kind of no signs of that slowing down at the moment, then those percentages just by default get higher and higher and higher and higher. So another thing to think about, and I guess you being on this webinar means that you are thinking about this and the skills that you might need now, and so in order to be more efficient, that you might need now to help students succeed and so on. Because it can do things like this, I mean, this is just me very simply asking it to write a risk assessment for a school trip. Okay, now I can't imagine there's anybody in this webinar got into education to write risk assessments. It's just one of those necessary evils that go along with what we have to do, one of those admin tasks. Now, I think with things like this, get AI to do it. Okay, I mean, it's probably a legal document that could be used in a legal way. So you're going to make sure that you have read it and that you have made sure that it is suitable for what you want to do. But for something like this, artificial intelligence, and in this case, ChatGPT, can probably do about 90-95% of the work for you just by simply asking it and giving it some guidance. Okay, and I often say we should talk to this like almost like it's an intern. So we need to guide it, we need to teach it a little bit, ask it to do certain things, correct it, and so on. And you can see here it's creating a table, a document that goes through the risk assessment for this school trip. Something that's a bit more pedagogical. In this example, I used to be a philosophy teacher, and there's some amazing videos out there. In fact, whole collections of videos by a channel called Crash Course Philosophy that just have some amazing content in. So if you know there's some amazing content out there, why not take that content and help get resources based on it from AI? So this is me simply going into YouTube, getting the transcript of that YouTube video and using it, asking AI to turn it into resources, into lesson plans. So it's just about working a bit smarter with this and going, right, well, how can AI help me just do what I'm already doing, but a bit faster, maybe a bit more efficiently, maybe even a bit more creatively. But again, this is a collaboration. You have to be the thinker in this process. In fact, I named one of the chapters in the book, Outsource Your Doing, Not Your Thinking. Okay, so we're getting it to do some of the doing here, but we don't want to hand over all the thinking, because then we are really replacing ourselves to a certain extent at that point. We're the professionals. We have knowledge of pedagogy, we have knowledge of our subjects, we have knowledge of our actual students, and so therefore we are the people who are ideally placed to do what we're doing. And so our thinking, our expertise is still the most valuable, but AI can do the doing, a bit like an intern who's helping out and helping out with some of the legwork around this type of thing.
Well,
now I'm going to show you an example now of how far you can take this. Really, I'll just stop this video. So when I was working with a history teacher last year, we were thinking, how do we get ChatGPT to become a historical character or a literary character? And we simply asked it to be Winston Churchill. In fact, I'll do it on the screen in front of you. So I'll just jump back over to ChatGPT. We simply said, act as Winston Churchill, talk like him, and use his limited knowledge. So we typed in something like this, and it started talking back to us like Churchill. And so we got some students. Now, students can, if they're over 13 years of age, with parental permission, use ChatGPT. So we got some students to, I've never had that before. You might have to play around with it. I'm not sure why it's doing that. It's never done that before. But we simply got some students to talk to Churchill, or the ChatGPT Churchill, through ChatGPT, and we found some amazing results. Students were starting to empathize with the character because they were asking him, was he scared during the Second World War? They were starting to build critical thinking skills because they were asking, did he regret anything, and so on. So it really brought the students to a deeper knowledge of that character in the fastest time I've ever seen it. And I taught a bit of history when I was in the classroom. We decided a few days later to actually, how do we bring this character to life even more using AI? Because it was essentially like having a WhatsApp conversation with Churchill. So we knew of a few tools, and we used 4 tools, and this is what it created. So we got the what do you call it, the monologue, the script from ChatGPT. We used a tool called play.ht to create the voice. We used a tool called DID to create the animation. We used Midjourney for the image, and we put it all together. Now I'm going to give you the guide of how you can do this, so don't worry about writing any of those things down. I've just said I'm going to give you a step-by-step guide on how to do it. And this is what it creates.
Wolsey, that Cardinal of York, was a trusted adviser and servant to me for many years. He served as Lord Chancellor and was instrumental in the administration of my kingdom. However, his failure to secure the annulment of my marriage to Catherine of Aragon was the beginning of his downfall. Additionally, his accumulation of wealth.
A lot of people ask, did I base that image on myself? I didn't. It looks nothing like me, doesn't it? Maybe just a coincidence. So that took no technical skills. The only skills needed, knowing how to log into 4 websites, knowing how to copy and paste, and knowing how to click upload and click download. That's all. And under 10 minutes. Now, I've been showing this and showing teachers how they can do this for months and months and months now, and I get teachers from around the world tell me how they've created bespoke resources for their students, and in some really creative ways using this technology. So like I said, I will give you the link and the guide of how to use this. What I'm going to do, just for time, because we've got 10 minutes left before we're going to do a bit of Q&A, is I'm just going to skip through some of these, and I want you to take away some practical things that might help you. Now, what we've got here is we've got the Prepare framework, and I just want to share with you how I get the most out of a tool like ChatGPT. So I'm going to go over to ChatGPT now. I'm going to share that over. So if I was asking this to, let's say, to create a lesson plan, and I typed in write a lesson plan on the 2008 Sichuan earthquake. I used to teach a bit of geography as well. And it's going to create a lesson plan for me. Now, you might have done something similar to this, and if you haven't, try it right now. Get it to create a lesson plan, a resource, a report, a letter, anything that you kind of do in your day-to-day that you think ChatGPT might be able to help you with. Now, there's some big issues here, and that being, how can this be useful? And I don't think it will. I don't think there's any chance any teacher would be able to use this lesson, really. Number one, it doesn't know the students, so it doesn't know how to tailor this lesson to the students. It doesn't know the previous learning, what they've learned in the last lesson and so on, or anything about earthquakes, so it can't be bespoke to that class, or it can't really fit into a wider scheme of work. It doesn't know exactly what we want to focus on. It'll be quite general. Use a PowerPoint presentation. Has it got anything about assessment materials in here? Normally they're quite general, like have a discussion or create a poster. It's just not very good. And you'll have probably noticed that yourself if you've asked it to do something similar. But the key thing here is it's the quality of the input that dictates the quality of the output. And my question here is really poor. It's not very good. I haven't really given it any information. I haven't really communicated with it. And if I was, let's take that intern analogy, and we treat ChatGPT as an intern. If you were to say to an intern who knows nothing about teaching, nothing about the subject, create a lesson plan on the 2008 Sichuan earthquake, and that was it. You just stop the conversation. Now, if that intern is an impressive intern, they might go away, they might research on Google the lesson plan structures, what a lesson looks like, what elements to put into a lesson. They then might go find some information about the 2008 Sichuan earthquake, and they might bring it back. And it might be fairly impressive for their standard. However, as a professional teacher, you're going to look at it and it's not going to be usable. So you have to communicate with that intern. And what I created here is essentially a way to communicate. It's not the be all and end all of how to communicate with ChatGPT, because language is very subjective and is not an exact science. But and if we just look at the Prepare framework at the top there, I kind of think of this as almost different levers that you might want to pull while having a conversation with ChatGPT. Now, or any other large language text model. Now, if you look at the prep bit first, So how might I change this? If I hover over here, I can edit this. So that might just be my first. So what I originally wrote might just be my prompt, my original prompt to introduce the AI to this. Then I want to give it a role. Okay, so I could say you are a teacher who knows a lot about this earthquake, and you are a PhD in the causes and effects of earthquakes. You are also amazing at writing lesson plans that are engaging. Now, this seems really weird, but what we're doing is we're just giving it more context of who we'd like it to be in this scenario. And it will try and use the knowledge that it has to be able to do this. So it's just another angle of kind of persuading it to use certain knowledge. Remember, 300 billion words worth of information. We need to get it to focus. And this is a way we can help to get it to focus. Now, the E bit in the prepare model is explicit instructions. So this is just a way to be really explicit about what you want. Make sure that you're doing the thinking and not the AI. So simple things like the lesson is 60 minutes long. Other things more pedagogical, maybe like use solo taxonomy when creating tasks. Other things maybe about the students. Now, we don't want to put personal information into this about students. We never do that. But we might say 3 students are dyslexic. Make sure the tasks and content is accessible to them, and so on. Now, if you had a real class in front of you, or sorry, a real class in your mind, you would be to add a lot more detail there, and really, and I suppose everything you miss out, you're handing over control to the AI. So if I didn't put how long the lesson was in there because I forgot, I'm leaving it to the AI to come up with the length, and it might not be what I need. So the more you can add, the more you can be explicit with what you need, the better. And you're not going to remember everything. Firstly, you might have to go back and forth with it. Now, the last bit of this prep model is parameters, as you can see here. And that is just things like, let's say, how it's going to present the information. So write in a professional tone. I'm going to say, present this in a table with headings. And in fact, no, I was going to put a reading level in there, but it's probably not appropriate to this. But you could put a reading level or a reading age in there, and it will adapt the writing for that. Then I'm going to click Save and Submit. And straight away, even though I could do a lot more work on adding more detail here, I'm going to get a better, more suited lesson plan. Now, it's still not going to be perfect. And in fact, I would go so far as to say you are never going to get a perfect answer out of this tool. You're always going to have to bring yourself in and manually edit it. But this can help. I mean, if this helps you get 30% of the way, maybe even 70% of the way, then just think how much time that could save you. And not just with lesson plans, but with lots of other things as well, content creation, admin tasks, and so on. Now, let me just very quickly tell you about what the A, the R, and the E are. Now, based on, because originally it was the prep framework, then I added these bits on due to some latest research that came out in November. Prep is very transactional. You're essentially saying to the AI, do this for me, be this person, do it like this, and present it like this, now give it to me. It's a very transactional process. A lot of the evidence suggests that it's actually the conversational, collaborative type of work that you do with AI that gets the better results. So this will help and assist this. The first one is simply you might want to type in something like, ask me any questions that will help you create a better lesson plan, or whatever it is it's creating. Then it will self-reflect on its work, see where it needs more information to be more accurate or a better resource, and then it will ask you some questions to fit, so it's got more information. So you're getting it to reflect and you're having that conversation. The next one builds on that, which is rate. Get it to rate its own response. So you could say something like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this lesson plan? And this is the key part, present to me in a table the criteria you have used for this rating. And then that allows you to have more control, because you can jump in and say, actually, I don't agree with that criteria. It's not my standard. I want a better standard. And you can change the criteria and then say to it, right now, aim for a 10 out of 10, and it will do better and aim for a 10 out of 10. And the last bit, which I'll end with because we're at 20 past, is emotions. This research, and it sounds bizarre, found that you get on average a 10% better response if you appeal to its emotions. And the response they found worked best was, my job depends on this, please do a good job. And on average, you get a 10% better result. You can also, there's another couple of little things you could do. You could say to it, take pause, try again, take a breath, try again, and based on the research, you will get some better responses out of this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop there, and I will leave you. This is my resource pack, so you can download from this resource pack the prepare method. And there's so much in there, how you can create the characters, how you can create virtual reality experiences with no skills. There's some strategic stuff for leadership. There's some assessment materials, and there's a PDF with a lot of prompts in there for teachers. And there is a resource there in terms of lots of different tools for teachers as well. So please do check that out. I'll leave it on the screen there. It's at ws.theaieducator.io, or you can scan that QR code. I'll leave that on the screen, and let's do some questions.
Yeah. Thank you, Dan, for enlightening us. We have a couple of questions for you in the chat. Some of the questions are regarding data privacy, and some of them is how we can prepare the world to be able to take all of this AI into consideration. So one of the questions is, how should we prepare students and teachers to use AI in a safe way?
Yeah, a few different points on that. So just like you would integrate any technology tool into your classroom or your school at the moment, I imagine there will be somebody or a team of people who look into the policy behind it, the terms of use, the privacy, is it GDPR compliant? That might be an IT team, it might be whoever it is in your organization. Nothing changes here. So if you want to use a tool in the school environment, then you want to run it past those people. You want to go through the official channels that you would normally use to get a tool approved. Now, we will find that some of these tools do not comply to GDPR, so you might not be to use them. And there's a lot of tools being created at the moment. And as you can imagine, a lot of them are American companies. And American companies, first of all, think, is it FERPA approved, which is their version of GDPR and so on. But then to them, Europe is a second thought. So you will find that some of the tools that are coming out just aren't GDPR compliant because the company just hasn't got to that stage yet. They're just focusing on the American audience, and that's, I suppose, one of the things about living in Europe when American companies produce a lot of these tools. So that might be the reason. Secondly, some of these AI tools might not be able to guarantee where the data goes. So does it stay in Europe? Does it go outside of Europe? Which obviously has a big implication on GDPR. So I don't want to get really into the technical side here, but use the people in your school who are trained on this already, and never just use a tool with students or with your school account or login details without checking, because you don't want to be that person who leaves your your organization open to a threat like that. And so that, I think, it's perfectly valid, still completely valid, just like any other edtech tool. AI brings a few more complications to it, but that should mainly be a worry for the people in your organization who that's their job to deal with it. So rely on them. I think, as a general rule of thumb, don't put any personal data into an AI. So don't put student names in, don't put names that can be linked to specific data, or colleagues' names as well. And also, if you're going to put somebody else's property in there, intellectual property, let's say, ask permission or see if they've got a policy on it already. Just a few ways to cover your own back there, I think.
And that leads me actually to the next question as well. When creating pictures or music by AI, who has the copyright for that?
Yeah, good question. So this is a very grey area, because a lot of copyright law, in fact, I think most copyright law doesn't actually cover this, because it's so new, because technically it's not a copy. And there's a lot of cases, again, in the United States that are going through courts, where there's all different points of view are being presented here. And I think what's going to need to happen is new regulation. Countries are going to have to come up with new regulation or apply existing regulation more specifically to artificial intelligence. Most countries have not done that yet, so it's still a very grey area. Now, on another level of that, you will find that in the terms of use of a lot of these tools, they will tell you that who has ownership. A lot of them, just because it would be too much work for them if this wasn't the case, just hand over copyright to you as the person who's generates it using the AI. Now, I do know, specifically in the USA and the UK, the law says you can't take an image created with AI and copyright that image yourself, because the law doesn't see it as being created by you. It sees it as being created by the AI. So if you do create something, you can use it, but if somebody else takes it and uses it as well, you can't really do much about that. So yeah, it's an interesting one in terms of, but I think regulation and law needs to catch up. We're still kind of, if you're old enough like me and remember the late 90s, we're still in kind of the late 90s of the internet, where it's a bit like the Wild West out there in some places, not always. But we need regulation to catch up with this. But that doesn't mean to say we can't start benefiting from it now, like I've tried to demonstrate this afternoon.
And I also just have to add that, me being a teacher myself, I actually use AI when I teach with my students, but we use a lot of time talking about critical thinking. What are your thoughts regarding critical thinking, and both for students and for teachers?
Yeah, I think it's vital. In fact, in the book, I did a whole section on how I think the skills that students are going to need in order to use this effectively. And I started off with curiosity. I think students are going to need, I mean, I don't know if it's just the English system. I've got a feeling it probably won't be, but we kind of do the opposite of that at the moment, in terms of motivating curiosity with students. I think we need to do a better job of motivating students to want to learn, and not just saying we're going to show you how to learn or tell you what to learn. So curiosity, being able to question really well, I think is going to be such a vital skill. Just like it is for any teacher, just like it is for any leader, just like it is for anybody collaborating with a team of people, being able to ask the right questions is in a lot of cases better than being able to come up with the right answers. And I think that's going to be a vital skill for our students who are going to be working alongside AI in their future lives, future careers, and so on. Then being able to critically analyze the responses that are coming back, because sometimes you get good responses, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you get responses that might have bias in them, sometimes you don't. And so being able to have the knowledge and the skills to look into that and to evaluate it in as much of an objective way as possible is going to be vital. And I've often said, I think journalistic skills are going to be really important here. being able to corroborate and critically analyze, and then applying it. How do we then apply whatever we've got from these tools, and whatever we've kind of collaborated on with these tools in the right way? So yeah, I think alongside a plethora of other skills that we're probably going to need to focus more on, which we probably haven't focused as much as we should have, critical thinking is going to be so vital.
Thank you. And thank you so much again, Dan, for joining us on our webinar, and to the audience as well. Thank you for joining us. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.